great pleasure, I welcome all of you for the next session as we continue our journey of learning and reflection. I request CA Raghavendra Bakre sir, Treasurer, Kolhapur branch of WIRC of ICAI, to escort our speaker, CA Shirish Rahalkar sir. And I'll also invite our respected session chairman, CA Abhishek Dhamne sir, RCM WIRC, to please join us on the dais. Your presence will truly enrich this session, sir. A big round of applause. Every session becomes meaningful when guided by someone whose knowledge inspires and whose experience enlightens us. Today, we are truly honored to have with us CA Shirish Rahalkar sir as our esteemed speaker.
CA Shirish Rahalkar sir brings over 2 decades of rich professional experience spanning assurance, risk advisory, and corporate finance. He began his career in Mumbai as a newly qualified chartered accountant and went to become a partner in 2017, building a strong and diverse portfolio of work. While he has served clients across multiple sectors, his core specialization lies in BFSI domain, covering statutory audits, financial due diligence, valuations, and risk advisory. His experience also extends to the manufacturing and engineering sectors, along with audits of IPOs and QIPs listed in India and abroad. His clientele ranges from small, non-profit to large corporates. Shirish sir remains actively engaged with NBFC and banking sector and is also qualified information system auditors. He has contributed to various ICI subcommittees and has been a regular speaker at CP programs. Welcome, sir.
Let us welcome CA Shirish Rahalkar sir with immense respect and appreciation. A big round of applause. May I now invite our esteemed speaker, distinguished chartered accountant, to address the gathering.
Thank you. And first, I must thank the WIRC as well as Kolhapur chapter for inviting me to speak on this occasion. Dignitaries on dais and my friends. The subject given to me was a little general, if I may say so, that I was asked to speak on audit, and then there was a deliberation as to what in audit. And then we thought of a subject line as audit unboxed and beyond checklist. And therefore, what I'm going to attempt is not speak about the typical audit steps and audit process, etc., but more to do with what is happening, what is evolving in the audit profession today, how our profession is going to change. Then my attempt is also going to be go through a few cases in order to help everyone understand as to how the failures in the corporate world are seen in the context of auditing standards. We will also touch upon the quality related processes, including the quality review board, the NFRA, the FRRB, etc. And I'll try to explain a little bit about how they work, what is going to be the role of these particular entities, and how they are helping us to improve the audit quality. So that's broadly the agenda. Let me describe that a little particularly now. That first we will look at, as I said, generally the audit is not going well. Actually it will be helpful to. Yeah, is it okay? Or am I audible? Thank you. So this is broadly the agenda that we'll look at the overview first, then a few auditing standards, the audit report, format of financials for non-corporate entities. I'm not going to take you through the format, I'm going to only highlight a few things around it. Then the peer review, quality review, NFRA, etc. So mind you, this session is not going to be exactly very technical, and I'll be happy if you raise your concerns, you bounce your thoughts relating to the points that I'm going to take you through. So let's first quickly look at the audit environment today. And I tried to put, when I was trying to put it in a particular shape here, what I noticed is that even this is not possibly complete. And never, we may not be ever able to identify as to what all is there which surrounds our audit exercise. And yes, largely when I'm speaking in the context of statutory audit. So yes, there are quality initiatives of institute as well as other regulatory bodies. There are regulators, general regulators like Company Act, which has a significant influence on how we do audit. There are special regulators like RBI, IRDA, and many other special regulations. There are tax authorities which determine how we do audit through, for example, the tax audit and the GST audit, which was abolished later. The AI and data science, which are two different dimensions which are going to impact audit. I am not going to dwell too much on AI because possibly many speakers have already spoken about it. Data analytics, mainly because of my experience in that field to some extent, I'm going to speak a little bit about that. And that end that I have written there, we'll come to that later. So the underlying statement that we need to remember presently is that we as auditors, we are working in an environment where there is a significant scrutiny of the work that we do. And two, the landscape is changing every day and at a very high pace. And therefore, we need to ensure that we respond to this both efficiently and positively. So when I talk about the present landscape, the first thought that comes to my mind is what I said, that the technological change is something which is most rapid. For example, just let me give you a slightly unrelated example. The presentation that you are seeing just now, in preparing that presentation in terms of its look and feel, I wouldn't have spent even 5% of my time today, which possibly a few years back, I would have spent a few hours on that. Now, Office 365 has got a feature and a concept called as designer. Many of the people here, if they can raise their hands, they would have already used it. Now, this is the speed at which the things are changing. Now, I was not required to spend any time on developing this presentation. My role was only to, put a right content in terms of the information in it. Regulators, as I said, these are some names of the regulators which have a significant role. Every regulator, especially the special regulators like RBI and IRDA, they have very specific expectations from the auditors. And therefore, this beyond checklist. Now, for example, when I do NBFC audits, Reserve Bank of India as a regulator regularly interacts with us. And there we get to know the nature and intensity of expectations RBI as a regulator has from the accounting and auditing fraternity. And that is an insight that we as auditors get beyond our basic audit checklists. Now, investors, lenders, boards, these authorities, the expectations change. I will tell you a simple example. Auditing listed companies, we get to interact with the boards and audit committees of large entities. Now, these days, their expectation is that you are able to provide higher and higher comfort, and you are not hiding behind the concept, a typical famous concept of test check in audit. Now, yes, on the one hand, we have to protect our boundaries and we have to ensure that we don't overcommit, but at the same time, we have to also ensure that we do what can be done in order to meet those expectations, and therefore the data analytics, on which I'm going to speak a little later. Now, this is one of the recent change which possibly many of the audience members here may not be very regularly conversant with, that is SA 600. How many of you have occasion to deal with SA 600? Yeah, so as I said, very few. But this is how the regulations change, this is how the regulations impact very fast. Now, this particular standard which deals with the responsibilities of the parent company's auditors when he is auditing consolidated financial statements. And in order to align that standard with the international reporting, the Company Act as well as NFRA kind of pitched in, and then they said that the parent auditor has to take responsibility of at least 80% of the consolidated financials. And therefore, a significant interaction between the parent as well as subsidiary auditors started. And that created its own pressures, that created its own complexities. So this is one of the important change that I thought that one must be aware of. Now, this is another recent development which we as practitioners should be more and more focused upon, and possibly because when we are auditing smaller and less stakeholder companies, we sometimes tend to lose the sight of this. Related party transactions is in a very significant focus over last especially 2 or 3 years. And I'm going to be talking about the corporate failures that happened also, and you will also notice that in most of those failures, related party transactions were at the heart of it. And therefore, today, SEBI has increased its focus on this, and SEBI has said that a much detailed, much wider, much larger disclosure is going to be mandated by the corporates, which obviously, as auditors, we are going to be required to audit also. Now, this is more like a conclusion of what we said in this particular slide, that what we need to do is to continuously innovate, adopt, and be able to serve our duty as guardians. Because larger stakeholder forums basically expect that auditor is able to stop when the things are not going right. Now, this maybe I'll spend a little bit on this particular slide, because when we talk about audit, though we are going to be largely trying to speak about what happens outside the audit box, nevertheless, the basic process of audit is still very critical. And therefore, let's talk about the appointment and engagement. And a standard which deals with this, the appointment and engagement, there are 2 standards. Can anybody quickly tell me about that? There are 2 important standards. Most of the people will feel that there is one, agreeing on the engagement terms. But there is one more standard, which becomes relevant when you are auditing, when you are getting appointed and engaging with a client. SQC1 has a much wider import, but there is one more standard, 510, which deals with the audit when you are doing it for the first time. And I'm going to be talking about that later. If I may ask, in this particular context, how many chartered accountants have an appointment letter as tax auditor? You can see that there is still a significant gap. I'll not dwell on that beyond this. Then there is a pre-planning phase in an audit. I will just quickly go through these steps, and on each step, I will try and, wherever there is one, I will try and give you some context, give you some example of my experience. So pre-planning stage is where you get to understand the business. And when I was talking to my colleagues or my friends on the sidelines of this program, one thing emerged from our conversation was that when you are doing a pre-planning exercise, when you are doing the business understanding, what is most critical is creating a right environment within the audit team to ensure that the understanding of the objectives of the audit and the work that we are doing is aligned right from the partner to the article assistant or the most junior person, whatever it is. And therefore, the partner, when he is ultimately signing, he is confident of the outcome on the basis of which he is signing. Mull on it, because I don't want to explain and take more time. We have a very limited timetable just now. But give it a thought, because I have myself noticed that there are cases where the people working on the ground, they are not aware of the implication or the importance or the significance of their work on the ultimate opinion that audit opinion that goes out. Then planning and scheduling activities, what I want to highlight here is that the extent and nature of effort that we are going to put in, that has to be clearly understood. And in this context, let me slightly digress and ask my colleagues as to how many of us today try and ensure that the effort required for a particular audit is reasonably estimated in advance, and what money we are going to make or not make on a particular assignment is at least understood. Whether we actually do that, we are able to meet that, etc., is an independent thing. That's not a discussion at a forum level. But how many of us do that? And that's one of the things that I thought is part of the planning. That are we looking at the effort involved in the audit and therefore then the reward against it? Give it a thought. I think that is one of the very useful things. Again, this is little more outside the checklist. Checklist will tell you, but that will tell you more from a compliance perspective, but from other perspective, possibly no. Checklist may not really mandate you to look at it that way. Then the internal control review, I think internal financial control, when it came in, many of the auditors felt, how do I deal with it? How will it impact? How will I help? How will it help in concluding for me, etc. But this has now become more of a part of our work. But when it comes to the audit report in the context of internal financial controls, I'm not sure as to how do we think about when we say that there is an absence of a particular control and still the financial statements are not misstated. There is a very significant interplay between the report on internal financial controls and report on the financial statements. And that interplay, understanding that interplay is one of the important aspects that I thought is important at this stage. In substantive testing procedures, one of the critical procedures, and I'm going to talk about it in the context of one of the case studies, that physical verification of assets as well as inventories. I think many a times this exercise is considered as a low-end. See, though it is quite unrelated to our profession, but I will still urge you to listen to it once. Because what we said was startling, and that gives us actually an insight on how rapidly the things can change. What we said is that within 6 months, I'm not exaggerating, I'm not putting any word from my side. Within 6 months, the highly paid actors concept might simply go. I said, it's obviously the interviewer asked him why. He said, AI is able to give you the hero the way you want. So why will I pay a particular actor? So just because there was a dark in the hall where films happen. So I thought I'd share an experience about that. So this particular analogy I shared mainly to highlight to you that this is the speed and this is the intensity at which the things can change for us. So physical verification, what I was talking about is that many a times we tend to think that this is a fairly mundane exercise, and the lowest in the hierarchy generally goes to that stockyard or that factory's site, which is physically difficult to handle, and then they come and do the physical verification. But I'm going to share that with you later as to how this physical verification has become many a times critical in the large corporate events. Now we go to the review and documentation. While documentation, a lot has been said, and a little bit I will also be covering in the subsequent slides. About review, I wanted to share one experience with you. One, the efficiency of the audit increased substantially because my review was not at the mercy of availability of time for all the participants and matching my and team's time. That was one. And second was that a lot of subjectivity got removed from the review process because I was not listening to my article saying that, sir, I have seen this, or I know this, or that it is like this, or it was like this. But my article assistant or my executive or my colleague was required to give me whatever I need to review in a form and manner where in the absence of that concerned person, I am able to review and evaluate and understand it completely. Now, many other aspects, many other obvious and traditional aspects of the review process of audit, I will not dwell on. But this one thing I thought I should share with you and possibly recommend that we all as auditors, we should attempt and experiment this because this increases the objectivity of the audit substantially. Seems to be difficult. Just give me a second. One of the very important decisions in FRA opined that communication with audit committee is not communication with those charged with governance. Hello? Yeah. So, something which possibly we haven't, I think it will go up and down till such time they settle. Hello? Hello? Huh. So, communication with audit committee, as a perception, we used to all feel that that is the right communication. Okay? So, NFRA clearly said that board is the ultimate authority which has to be called as those charged with governance, and therefore saying that we inform something to the audit committee and that did not travel to the board will not save you, and therefore your communication has to be with the board of directors. And analogy to it, I am aware of many complications where CS got into serious troubles even in small private companies, where they kept on communicating with their contact people in the organization with directors who were involved in the operations, missed out on ensuring that they have clear and periodic communication with all set of directors, and then those directors which were not in the regular operations, they came in and then they said that you did not inform us of something. And this sounds like that it is going to affect your relationships, this, that and other, but please bear in mind, as one of the speakers earlier said in the morning, the profession comes first, then the relationship. Post-audit archival and debrief with the management audit team, that what I have basically written about is mainly to ensure that the learnings from each year's audit exercise actually get disseminated to both your team as well as the management. And many a times formally writing to the management saying that these are the concerns that have been dealt with, or these are the experiences that we have dealt with, makes a big difference. As one of my mentors used to say, that what gets measured, what gets monitored, only gets done. And therefore, if you start doing this, I can assure you that you will see the difference in the way the things are done. Now that we have dealt with and we have spoken about the audit process in general, if anybody wants to interrupt, ask any questions, no problem. But if in order to maintain a balance, if we want to take it at the end, no problem. So what I was talking about initially also is about data analytics tools. How many of you presently actually are using some tool or the other? Very few. Is it really that very few are using? My recommendation will be, let's start, because that is something that is going to do two important things. One, it has a potential of substantially increasing your audit efficiency, especially when you are doing the work in the retail nature of transactions. And second, to the stakeholders, you are in a position to provide much higher comfort, which is one of the real value adds for which the chartered accountants are going to be appreciated. I can tell you that me as an auditor, I use at least 120 data analytic templates across my audits as minimum analytics that is performed. And when I say 120, these are not standard templates. These are not something which, that on the basis of just 2 columns, somebody is obviously comparing something. These are the analytic templates that we use, which have been developed on the basis of understanding of a particular client, industry, business, etc. And those are implemented in order to give a more and more higher comfort. I'm not sure everybody how much will be able to relate, but if time is okay, I can give you a quick 1-2 minute example of a data analytics. That in NBFC sector, RBI, and I think that requirement is there for banks also, RBI came up with a very specific guidance that if you have written off a particular loan in last 12 months, or you have entered into a settlement with a particular borrower in last 12 months, you cannot grant that borrower a new loan. Now, when you are auditing an entity with, say, 5 lakh live loans, checking that on a manual basis is almost impossible. But using an analytical tool, we were able to give 100% comfort to a client that yes, we have gone through the disbursements of last quarter, mapped them on all the settlements done in last 12 months, and these are the 6 exceptions where you have given these loans. Now, this is a regulatory compliance. Unfortunately, in India, at least today, most of the regulators don't understand materiality. They expect 100% compliance. I think most of you will agree with me on this. So, being able to give that level of comfort to a client made a big difference. So, I will not go too much into the details of this. These are some examples of the data analytic tools. Excel, everyone uses. More you are able to exploit, more you are able to do. Power BI, let me tell you, whoever has got the Microsoft Office license, which is Microsoft Office 365, this Power BI is a tool which is already available there. You don't have to go and buy it. It's just the question of how we want to learn, how we want to use it. And let me tell you, in this context, what I have noticed is that article assistants are the best people to deploy these tools. They have the inclination, the intensity and the liking to exploit these tools. You have to only guide them in terms of the objectives, and you will be able to use it very effectively. Other tools, I think most of you would have heard. I won't spend too much time on that. Now I'm going to quickly touch upon 2-3 key aspects in relation to audit report, which based on my recent experience are becoming more and more critical. And first of them is with respect to audit trail. Now, we are required to report on the existence and effectiveness of the audit trail, right? Everybody is seized of that. What I have noticed is that if you really carefully look at the Company Act provisions, etc., the basic responsibility of maintaining audit trail is on the company, and we are only required to comment on that. Though, like any other typical regulator, you may be remembering that First, the requirement relating to audit report came, then it was halted, and then the Company Act requirement relating to the audit trail to be maintained by the company came, etc., etc. happened. But what possibly in many cases is missing and which is important even in the context of just the earlier session relating to cyber frauds is that are we really carefully determining what is the universe of books of accounts for which the audit trail is required? Because with the tools that we spoke about in the context of this cyber frauds, etc., those bridges between the company and the other entities, the point of sale devices, the inventory applications, X application, Y application. For example, even the insurance companies who operate in a very, very retail space in that sense, you'll be surprised that many of the insurers have applications in excess of 30, 40, which are parallelly running in their system and handling a large amount of data which relates to the financial reporting ultimately. So, therefore, determining that particular universe and making the company first officially and formally acknowledge that particular universe of applications as applications requiring audit trail is important, and my recommendation will be that we do that instead of simply taking that responsibility on us. And in this context, I was also discussing with many of the people that where we are working as auditors as well as in number of other capacities, please use this audit trail as one of the important learnings. That when you are filing a return of a assessee from the same IP from where you have filed a tax audit report, in the hindsight, when things go wrong, it will be almost impossible for you to establish your independence as auditor. And that is something that will be seen very skeptically by the regulators. Now, another aspect is with respect to maintaining servers in India. Are there any people here in this forum who audit Indian entities of multinationals or do work for Indian entities of multinationals? Then in that case, this may not be very relevant, but nevertheless, quickly in a minute, that when you have entities where it is an Indian entity and its big parent is outside India, many a times they tend to maintain their ultimate accounting database outside India, and that is not allowed under Companies Act if they are not replicating it here on a daily basis. And it has got a straight away a penalty implication, very significant penalty implication for directors. And therefore, we have to be quite mindful about it. Caro, I think a lot would have been said. I am going to quickly touch upon a few points relating to Caro in the later slide as to what typical defects happen. But one recent development I thought I must share, which is a development as recent as maybe 2-3 days back, is that the definition of small company under Company Act is proposed to be changed. And because of that, Caro is not going to remain applicable to entities up to 100 crore if I'm not wrong. We as accountants actually should be worried because that reduces our relevance to that extent. So these are a few points relating to Caro, and because this material is going to be shared, I may not dwell too much on it, but I will dwell on one point relating to events of fraud, because many a times there is a tendency not to report smaller instances of fraud or complicated instances of fraud, and therefore possibly we need to be a little more conscious, because if that event in a later stage becomes further complicated, you may be blamed for not having reported it. So that is one aspect that I thought I must highlight. And another instance which was a complicated case which I happened to deal with a few years back was that one of the entities had a practice of paying commissions for getting business. Then the ownership level changed. Ownership changed. The new ownership did not like the practice. Then there was an internal whistleblower who said that this practice is there. Then it went into a phase where the management was completely changed. the practice was completely stopped, the customers were disengaged, the company took the hit in that sense. And then ultimately the company also took a decision to surrender the expenses claimed on these type of expenses and revise their tax audit reports. Now here a very complicated question arose about whether this amounts to surrender of income, which is one of the requirements of reporting in CARO. So what I'm only trying to highlight is that CARO can have these level of complications that one has to require to attend to. Now this audit documentation, what I'm going to talk about quickly is that today there are number of good, bad, costly, cheap audit workflow tools available, and that basically helps us to, one, ensure the completeness, and here we come a step back from the out of the or beyond the checklist to the checklist, that it basically helps us to ensure that completeness of the audit work is ensured and what needs to be covered is covered. And therefore, looking at these audit workflow tools is definitely recommended in terms of, if not adopting, at least taking clues from it in order to simplify, strengthen, and make our own audit process more and more robust. So here, just a warning that remember that while we are talking about the audit tool, automated process, etc., the skepticism cannot be ignored. Now what I am going to quickly deal with is our 2 or 3 only auditing standards, and in the interest of time I may not spend too much time in terms of explaining the auditing standard, because yes, we all know also pretty well, but in the audit evidence standard what I will jump to is 1 or 2 aspects. One, as I said, the appropriateness of audit procedures and appropriateness of audit evidence is something that one has to very carefully and clearly understand, and in that context I am going to talk about a few recent findings. Okay, and these are all cases in public domain, you can go and check them. One was a case where a large travel company had significant related party advances given, and auditor did not try to understand and evaluate the recoverability and relevance of those advances in the context of the business of the company. And when they ultimately went bad, the auditor was questioned for purely relying on management representation, and that is one of the important learnings relating to concept of audit evidence, that management representation is not a substitute for the verification and critical evaluation. This is one of the famous case, though I have said here auto ancillary, many of you may know even the name. There was one company called as Amtech Auto, and which went through a very big corporate failure. Now what actually in that case happened is that this particular auto ancillary company was claiming to have contracts with the OEMs for supply of parts, when many of the contracts had either expired or they were for much smaller quantities than what was purported to be. And because the auditor did not critically examine those contracts and did not really check those contracts carefully, this remained undetected for a long time, and then ultimately it resulted in a failure. So what actually I have, if you notice, what I have tried to do here is that 2 or 3 standards only I am going to talk about, but basic intention is to correlate these standards and the corporate failures that got reported upon. Now PMC Bank, a very famous case many of you would be aware of. What the auditors actually failed is that for the very large customers of PSU banks, that PMC Bank, the auditors should have actually gone and tried and did the physical verification of inventory of those clients, or got that done through an independent chartered accountant. But they did not do it, and that actually ultimately resulted in the failure of the bank, because that client had actually gone down much earlier which remain undetected for years. Then in one of the very large power companies in the south, what was discovered, and this I think everyone should reflect upon, because in a kind of a practice for over the years, we generally tend to get used to these things and therefore sometimes tend to miss the anomalies in this, is that the client kept on giving the Excel sheets to the auditor of various workings, and auditor, possibly because of the long acquaintance, etc., and some amount of missing skepticism, just forgot to ensure that those Excel sheets had an appropriate backing in the form of actual financial information in the core accounting system. And then it was discovered that many of those Excel sheets were manipulated. And that is how the skepticism is actually required in the gathering of the audit evidence. So we will go to the other standard, SA 510, which is about the initial audit engagements, and where what one needs to know is that when you are taking over an audit from another auditor, one should not hesitate in doing the complete and careful due diligence. Yeah. Okay. So that's something that one needs to be aware of. What, in the interest of time, what I will do is that out of these failures that we are talking about, I will, I think, dwell upon one that where the balances, where the auditor failed to verify the balances from the earlier auditor's audit report, and in DHFL case, it was discovered that the auditor who took over from the earlier auditor, yes, while the earlier auditor had failed, the new auditor also became party to it because he also did not verify the opening balances correctly. So my recommendation is that when an audit comes to you from a different auditor, be very skeptical and mindful of the fact that there may be errors which have got ignored for various reasons. So what I will do is, in the interest of the time, let me skip one or two of these because explaining them is going to be a little time consuming, but just look at the names. And please understand, all these failures which are, what we call them as headline failures, Kingfisher, Reliance Capital, ILFS, all these failures are failures of auditor not reporting the going concern for years together when there were clear red flags which were impacting the going concern. The modification and adverse opinion, etc., those two standards, one with respect to modification and the other one with respect to the emphasis of matter paragraph. On those two standards, I think most of us are aware of that, how they have to be drafted, etc. But what one needs to be mindful about is that in the pressure of relationship, in the pressure of long-term association, etc., please do not dilute what is required to be done, because there is always a tendency to say that, no, if required, can you make an emphasis instead of a qualification? Can you make a qualification instead of adverse opinion? Please understand that these are all early red flags of failures. And we are not actually ever responsible as auditor for failure, but nevertheless, we are responsible for not highlighting those failures in time. So this was about audit reports. On the format for financials for non-corporate entities, I will only make one statement. That personally, I was a little anguished when I heard that a representation was made to defer it. We as a profession, we should be saying that yes, something useful, important, helpful, we are eager to implement it. We should be actually eager to implement it. On the peer review, QRB, etc., constraint of time, I'm not going to dwell, but I wanted to only leave you with one important thought, that how many of you, one, have at least read, understood about the AQMM? Again, very few. The audit quality maturity model is one of the very important and useful tools that our own institute has provided us. We may not, in the process of peer review, etc., because you or somebody is a small firm, they don't need it, but I will still recommend everyone to use it, because AQMM is a very good self-assessment tool to understand in terms of, as an organization, where do you stand in terms of the processes and quality control, and that you can use as a self-development tool. So I will really recommend that everyone should, for their own assessment, use this tool. It's a pretty simple checklist of whatever 3-4 Excel sheets, and that will give you your own score out of 600, and you will be able to understand as to where you need to move to become a high quality enterprise. The observations that have been found in the peer review are pretty obvious and common, so I'm not dealing with them. Quality review board, how many are aware? And how many have experience of having? No. So my recommendation again here will be, go and read the quality review board's reports. They publish annually the common issues that they find. Those issues are a very good learning in terms of fixing the issues in our audit processes. So then therefore I am not dwelling on them. NFRA, again I am keeping it limited, that there are many cases of NFRA in the public domain, and those issues that NFRA has found, I think they are pretty fixable. As I said, re-emphasizing again, related party transactions is at the core of most of the corporate failures, and we have to be extremely conscious and cautious about auditing it. So that's it from my side. While we can, depending on the time availability, we can take or not take the question and answer. I can take that separately also. But if I were to take you back, I would have taken you back to the audit universe that I discussed initially. Thank you so much. Thanks for your patient hearing. And my apologies, there were disturbances and I had to rush it a bit also. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, sir. Now I request Abhishek Dhamne, sir, to offer concluding remarks.
Hello. Respected speaker, Shri Shahakar sir, Raghavendra Bakare, dear all Kolhapurians, very good afternoon to all of you. Friends, it was indeed a wonderful session. Big round of applause for Rahakar sir. Sir, your session was really wonderful session, and I think so it is a precursor session for peer review applicability. Friends, I don't know how many of you are aware about the peer review. From 1st of January 2026, partners having 3 or more in the firm and those who wish to do the bank audit are mandatorily to complete their peer review. So please be aware of this provision, and sir has delivered a really wonderful session. The topic you shared, sir, which is really close to my heart, documentation, peer review. Sir, you spoke about the QRB. I would request all of you to read NFRA order. तुम्ही कोणी इथे NFRAच्या ऑर्डरचा वाचल्या चार्टर्ड अकाउंटंटच्या, तर माझी खात्री की तुमची झोप नक्कीच उडेल. तर those such kind of orders are being passed by the NFRA. Friends, it is indeed an honor to stand before you. I would like to share a few activities. Next session, though, it is on AI. Parag, with your permission, I'll share our few activities which are taking at AI. So, Ketan Bhai, Piyush and Fenil all spoke about AI, the importance of AI. Let me assure you, friends, what sir has told about that 100% test check, checking of the rolling over of the documents, rolling over of the loans, and all the things sir what told, they are completely achievable through the use of AI. So I would urge all of you to please make AI as your routine companion. AI को आप अपना एक गुलाम बनाओ और उसके हिसाब से you please do the best use of AI. Friends, at WIRC, we are taking a lot of efforts through AI committee. Ketan bhai shared in the afternoon about the publication of essential tool which are relevant for chartered accountants. We are coming up with another volume of that on 19th and 20th December. We are launching that volume 2 of essential tool for chartered accountant. त्याच्यात महत्त्वाचं म्हणजे असं आहे की those who have not attended AICA level 1 batch or level 2, as a layman language, we have tried to keep it very simple. Your staff can understand and learn a lot of details from that, and you make use of AI through that. Apart from that, DPDP, Data Privacy Data Protection Act publication, we are coming up. So it will be also launched on 19th and 20th of December. So it is really, as a chartered accountant, we upload or we share a lot of documents on internet about our clients. So as a chartered accountant, we should take care and we should be aware about the penal consequences of sharing of the client information. Anil sir, मागच्या आठवड्यात आपले आशिष शेलार सर आले होते. AIची कॉन्क्लेव्ह जी मुंबईला होती तेव्हा तिथे ते आले होते. And friends, I am really happy to share that Maharashtra government and WIRC, we are entering with MOU for two things. One, on establishment of AI labs in Maharashtra through the help of WIRC, and secondly, making WIRC as a partner in knowledge dissemination of ethical use of AI. सो ह्या दोन गोष्टींसाठी सर आपण त्यांच्यासोबत MOU करतोय आणि पब्लिकली आशिष शेलार साहेबांनी सांगितलं डेफिनेटली वी विल बी डुईंग दॅट. सो इट्स अ वंडरफुल अचीवमेंट बाय AI कमिटी ॲट WIRC. सो अपार्ट फ्रॉम दॅट, आशिष सर, कॉर्पोरेट ट्रेनिंग आम्ही चालू केलं आहे. रिलायन्स, अदानी, रिलायन्सचे 600 चार्टर्ड अकाउंटंट जे त्यांना AICA लेवल 1चं ट्रेनिंग देतो आहे. 300 अदानीचे चार्टर्ड अकाउंटंट्स त्या ग्रुपला आम्ही ट्रेनिंग देतो आहे. कोल्हापूरमध्ये पण जो कोणी कॉर्पोरेट ट्रेनिंग फक्त चार्टर्ड अकाउंटंट्स त्यांना हवं असेल, एक्सक्लुझिव्हली त्यांना कस्टमायझेशन कोर्सचं केलं जाईल. त्यांच्या संदर्भात 3 दिवसाचा त्यांच्याच तिथे कोर्स घेतला जाईल. सो इट इज वंडरफुल इनिशिएटिव्ह वॉट WIRC इज टेकिंग. ऑन पुणे ऑल्सो, MCure Pharmaceuticals, we are starting. Blue Star Limited also we are doing. So all these activities are going on at WIRC. I request all of you to please stay tuned. Apart from that, Hackfest we are organizing. Those of you who are interested in becoming the AI enthusiast or those who are AI enthusiast, you can submit your paper to WIRC before 15th of December 2025. On 19th and 20th December, the conference which is happening, your paper or your tool, whatever you have prepared, you have opportunity to share it with the audience present there. So these kind of competitions are also we are taking. Prompt engineering competition is also one thing we are coming, where best prompt for the month will be awarded. So because the only thing in your hand in the world of AI is the prompt. So if you are a champion in that, you please show your skill and upload it to the website, and accordingly the winner will be also disclosed. So these are all initiative, friends, we are taking. I request all of you to please be stay active with WIRC. पहिल्या सगळ्यांना तर तुम्ही आज रविवारी तुम्ही इथे सगळे आहात. आज आता 3:30 वाजता आहेत तरी इथे आहेत, तर एक जोरदार स्वतःसाठी तुमच्यासाठी टाळ्या होऊन जाऊ द्या. तर इथे तुम्ही आहात तर एक ऑपॉर्च्युनिटी नवीन चार्टर्ड अकाउंटंटसाठी येते, ती मला तुम्हाला शेअर करायला आवडेल. ॲज अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटंट वी आर वन ऑफ द बेस्ट प्रोफेशन in India and across the globe. So friends, Indian Association of Gold Excellence and Standards ही जी एक सेल्फ रेग्युलेटेड बॉडी आहे, जसं ॲम्फी आहे किंवा इरडा आहे म्हणजे इन्शुरन्सची कंपनी. सो त्याच्यासारखी एक IAGES अशी एक ऑर्गनायझेशन आहे विच इज सब पार्ट ऑफ वर्ल्ड गोल्ड काउन्सिल विच सिट्स इन लंडन. सो त्यांनी आता हे इंडियन असोसिएशन इंडियात चालू केलं आहे. तर आपण जे गोल्डचे जे काही व्हॅल्यू चेन पार्टनर्स आहे, म्हणजे कोणी बुलियन ट्रेडर असेल, कोणी रिफायनरीजमध्ये असेल, कोणी ट्रेडर्स असतील, कोणी डिजिटल गोल्ड विकत असेल. तर हे जे व्हॅल्यू चेन पार्टनर्स आहेत, तर यांचं प्रोसेस ऑडिट करण्याची आपल्याला सगळ्यांना संधी आलेली आहे. As a chartered accountant institution and IAGES, they have entered into MOU where only chartered accountants firm will be allowed to do the process audit. And if you do that process audit, you will be that value chain partner will be getting certified by the IAGES, and it will be with accreditation. म्हणजे आपण जसं म्हणतो हॉलमार्क आहे किंवा त्यांचं कॅरेटचं जसं रेटिंग असतं, तसं त्यांच्या प्रोसेसेससाठी आपण प्रोसेस ऑडिट केल्यावर तर त्यांना ते सर्टिफिकेट दिलं जाईल. त्यांच्या ब्रांचेसमध्ये, त्यांच्या हेड ऑफिसमध्ये ते सर्टिफिकेट डिस्प्ले केलं जाईल आणि अकॉर्डिंगली ते त्यांचं ॲक्रिडेशन पुढे वाढेल. तर ही संधी बाकी कॉस्ट अकाउंटंटला नाही, कंपनी सेक्रेटरीला नाही, बाकी कोणालाच नाही, फक्त चार्टर्ड अकाउंटंटसाठी आहे. मी कोल्हापूरमध्ये फर्स्ट टाईम आता माझं इंटरॅक्शन होतं आहे. सो आय थॉट दिस अपॉर्च्युनिटी इज फॉर ऑल द चार्टर्ड अकाउंटंट्स. यू प्लीज गो टू द ज्वेलर्स, ट्रेडर्स, त्यांच्याकडे जाऊन तुम्ही ह्या संदर्भात चर्चा करा. डेफिनेटली तुम्हाला 2 ते 3 दिवसात ऑडिटमध्ये 50,000 to 60,000 फीजपर्यंतची आपण त्याच्यात फीज रिकवर करू. आणि दिस विल बी अ ॲन्युअल प्रोसेस. दिस इज नॉट वन टाईम प्रोसेस. एव्हरी टाईम, every year you'll have to renew the licenses, the accreditation, and accordingly it's a wonderful opportunity for the chartered accountants. So with this, I thank all of you for your patient hearing. And sir, as you have told, friends, I will not fail in my duty. This is a going concern session, so we have one more session after this. So please stay tuned for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we request CA Raghavendra Bakre sir to felicitate our esteemed technical speaker for his valuable contribution for today. Thank you, sir. On behalf of organizers, we take this opportunity to express our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker, CA Siresh Rahalkar sir, for delivering such an insightful session and sparing time from his busy schedule. Also, a special thanks to CA Abhishek Dhamne sir and CA Raghavendra Bakre sir for their presence. Now we conclude this session and we will move for our next session.